Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button before you leave, that helps out a great deal. I'd also love it if you'd leave a comment. Comments help to get the channel promoted, and I like interacting with you guys. So if you have some suggestions or just pointers or constructive criticism or ideas for videos or any of that kind of stuff, I like to hear that. So thanks in advance for those things. I've been wanting to do some pieces that involve some optical illusions for a while, and so I thought today I'd do 3 different kinds of common optical illusion pictures, but reproduced in sterling silver. And also one of the pieces I'm going to use copper and brass as well. We'll give that a try. Before we get started, I wanted to thank my YouTube subscribers. We passed 5,100 the other day, which is amazing and wonderful. Thank you all for all of your support, your kind words, and your things like the super thanks and the buying me a coffee and all that stuff really helps to keep me in supplies, so I appreciate that. I wanted to thank my patrons. I have a new patron over on Patreon. It's Lars S. So thanks for signing up, Lars. I look forward to chatting with you on Discord. But these are the people who are paying for my premium content, so it's a nice place over there, and I hope that you find that that's the case as well, Lars. So let's get started on this project. This is my design idea book, which you can find in my merch store. It's come in really handy for me lately. I didn't used to draw everything up, but anymore I do. It seems to really help me to get my ideas in order. And what I like about these are the squares on it. It's like graph paper, but it doesn't have the distracting lines on it. It's just got the corner points, so it helps me to keep things sort of symmetrical. Here's the 3 designs. I think I did them in reverse order. This one I'm going to try first. I pre-made a bezel just because we're doing 3 projects to save time, so I have a little black onyx that'll fit in there. It's a little bit bigger than that, so I might have to scale it up. And let's see, then this one is kind of a the reason this is an optical illusion, the lines of the wires give it kind of a tunnel look. It looks like you're looking down a tunnel. That's why I put black for black onyx at the base here. Dark colors tend to recede. This is a classic one. Is it a vase or is it 2 faces looking at each other? So I'm going to cut this out of silver. See if my sawing abilities are up to that or not. I don't know. We'll see. But then I'll frame it so it's transparent where the faces are and silver where the vase is. So, and then third, I'm going to do a tri-metal one. This one looks like it's geometrically impossible because of the way this front side goes into the inside of that. However, it's not impossible to recreate it out of metal, so I've cut some pieces like that. It was actually quite difficult to get these pieces to be as precise as I would like them to be, so probably due to my imperfect drawing at first here. I was using this as a basis for the templates for the metal, so I got them pretty close and I'm satisfied with them, and I think I'll probably solder them down to a silver piece of sheet and then cut out the sheet in the middle. The central triangle is a little bit smaller on this one, and I'll put a bail on each of these, kind of my standard bail. If you've never seen how I make those bails, I'll put a link right there for you. It's a really useful bail, pretty easy to make, and looks pretty classy. So I'm going to do that for all 3 of these. But let's get started on this one. I already calculated how long of a piece of, I'm going to use 14 gauge wire for the round part, 18 for the inside. The bezel, I used 3/16 inch fine silver bezel strip in 26 gauge, so it's a little on the thicker side. Probably use a 14 gauge ring for that up there. So base of the bezel, 26 gauge sheet, which is what I use for most things. As always, I'll be using hard silver solder, and I use a spray-on flux called My-T-Flux. So let's get started here. I think I calculated using a little geometry. I know you all love math as much as I do probably, but the circle is about 30 millimeters across, so I multiplied it times pi. What do I get? 94.2. Oh, I cut this a little short. I should have double checked my math. So I'm going to cut this about 95 millimeters just to make our circle. Okay, first I'm going to make this into a circle. Solder it closed. Probably during this video you'll see me doing a lot of pick soldering. That's been one of the things that's made me go from an amateur to someone who's pretty good at this. So if you're interested, I will put a video up there for you to show you how to pick solder. It really speeds the process up and allows you to pretty precisely put solder where you want it to go in the amount that you want. So I just pick up a piece of solder like that. Here in northern Colorado this weekend I have a show in Loveland. You should stop by and say hi. It's at North Lake Park. There's actually a big sculpture show that goes on at the same time, but I'm in the arts and crafts section, of course. Not really a sculptor. Get all the wobbles out of this here. Okay, I'll set that to the side for a moment. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a bunch of these little 18 gauge wires and just spray them out from this relatively symmetrically, longer than I need, and then I'll plop this down over the top and then I'll be able to mark where I want them to go so it looks like it's tapering off to one side. So let's try that and see how that works. So I'm going to cut myself a number of these. I should say they should be, you know, probably at least that long, I would say, so that we can position our circle where we want it to. Now they're not all going to need to be this long, so I can cut some shorter probably. That's probably enough. I guess we'll find out. Okay, I'm going to file one end flat. Let's do these long ones first. I'm going to sweat a little tiny bit of solder on the end of each of these to make it easier to solder them to the outside of the bezel. I'm a little shaky today. Okay, I soldered the rest of those off camera just for time's sake, since I was doing the same thing. I just lined them up next to the bezel here in a straight line with the soldered ends touching, and we'll see if we can't get those to stick. Of course, they'll move as soon as I spray some flux on them. Sometimes if they shift a little bit, when the solder is at a liquid state, you can move them a little bit, so it's not a huge deal if you accidentally get them not straight across from each other or something. It's attached. That looks pretty good. Let's line up a couple more. Oops. Accidentally pushed too hard on that one and bent it a little bit, so I'll straighten it back out. So I'm just going to repeat that process until it goes all the way around the entire thing, and looks like sort of like a sun with rays coming out of it. And then we'll decide where to position it so we can cut those off to the right length, so we can solder it inside of that circle. So I got that kind of spray of little 18 gauge wires sticking out. So now I need to figure out how I'm going to position this. It needs to be offset to look like it's receding, I think. If you do it like that, it's just going to look too symmetrical. So I was thinking something like that. So my feeling is, in order to make sure that I don't overcut anywhere, I'm going to make the mark on the outside here. That way I can cut it off kind of at the inside line there, and then gradually snip it inwards until it fits right in there. I think that's probably my best bet at not cutting too far then. Hopefully I didn't move too much. See that a little better. So what I probably could do is I could make these all purple and then scratch a line with a pick on the outside. That's probably the best way to get it pretty close. So I think I'm going to do that. So I should be able to just kind of make a little scratch. probably can't see it on the camera, but there's a nice little fine line there I can use as a guide. So that'll get us real close. I think with just a tiny bit of filing, this will fit nicely in there. So I'm going to gently file the edges. And that fits in there. Okay, so now you just got to solder it in there. This is going to involve some pick soldering again. But I have a bunch of solder over here in pretty small pieces, which is good. So I'm going to put that sort of down towards the bottom corner like that, I think. So I need to, whoopsie, just burned myself a little bit. I'm going to put a bail kind of right up here somewhere. Make some rings. Solder this ring closed. Some of my excess solder from the last thing here. Should be enough solder in that solder joint to solder it together. I think this one's going to be a fun one. It'll be interesting to see if the optical illusion on paper that this is, where it kind of gives that sense that you're receding into a tunnel, whether that translates into jewelry once it's all shined up. We'll see. Okay, so I will throw a bail on that and set the stone and show you the final product at the end. But while that's pickling, let's start the second one. And it's going to be this vase one. And so what I did was, in advance, I did my best to try and get this as symmetrical as possible. But I took a piece of 18 gauge sheet, and I'm going to attempt with my poor sawing skills to saw this. So, and we'll see how that comes out. But then I'll build a frame out of maybe 14 gauge square wire, and we'll add a bail to it. And this will be a see-through area. So let's see if I can saw this out. Okay, here's my little sawing area. I'm going to go with a 1/0, just 0. We'll see how it goes. It's getting harder to see these little teeth on these things as I get older. That's pretty good for me. I may do a little cleanup with the file to make sure it looks, you know, pretty similar on both sides, because it's not going to be exact, but that'll be what I do next. Okay, I cleaned it up a little bit with the Dremel and with the file. Try to get it as symmetrical as possible. As I said, my sawing is not my strongest suit, but I did a reasonably decent job for me, so I think you can see the silhouettes. So I'm going to go ahead and solder a piece of square wire up here and down here that stick out just a little bit. So I need to cut myself a little bit of square wire. That looks pretty good. I think I will sweat some solder on the wire so I don't have a lot of sloppy overflow. So I'm going to take some of that solder that's pretty oxidized over there and use it up on these, on one side of each of them. Alright. Loop over. So, got a good solder seam on both of those, it looks like. Now, I'm going to take some more of that square wire that I just had. I'm going to come up with a nice curve inwards that's pleasing to the eye. I don't want it to be too big of a curve. Kind of like that. Then I think what I'll do is I'll trim off where these corners on the top so that this flows right along the edge of that. I think that'll look nice and neat. So let's make sure I have enough here. Pretty similar curve on these two. So let's do this in order to keep track of where I want to make my should be able to make a little scratch here. I have to hold it this way though. So if I did this well, should be able to snip that off, snip that off. maybe do a little bit of filing right there. Smooth it out. And we'll solder that in there like that. I'll add a bail to that and trim those off and file it up, and we'll pickle that and we'll get started on the next one. Got the 3 pieces I cut out of 18 gauge brass, 18 gauge copper, and 18 gauge silver in order to get this shape. Now, it was super hard to get it perfect on this, mostly because of my imperfect cutting and measuring. So I think I'm going to separate them slightly so there's a gap between each one that shows through from the sheet that I'm going to solder it down to the bottom. So I think let's start with the silver one. Let's see, and make sure I got enough room here for everything. It'd be kind of like that. So let's start marking where this one goes. Then I'm going to sweat a little solder onto this thing here, and we'll see how that goes. Actually, I think I'm going to sweat it at the back of the overlay piece. See if we can't get it to stick where I want it to. Now I'm spreading some out across the length of it. So the big sheet is going to be the harder part to get at the temperature because it's bigger and it's kind of against the pad. This other one up top is easier to get hot. Kind of skate on me a little bit though. That's going to be the hardest part, is controlling it when it decides to start hydroplaning, solder planing, what do you call that? Like that. So let's sweat some onto the back of this and onto the back of this. I think the best way to get perfect proportions on this, I don't have a printer, so I was sketching from a picture of that particular optical illusion, and so my proportions may be a little bit off. If you have a printer, though, you should be able to print one to exact proportions and then use that as a template, and you'll probably have better luck than I had as far as the time it took me to cut these out. What I ended up doing was I used a thinner piece of brass as a template. It's easy to cut out, and easy to file some off in order to get it to be the right size and shape. That's kind of what I'm looking for. Hopefully I can keep it in place when it starts to do its little number where it starts to move around on you. Well, that's cleaning up a little bit so I can take a better look at it. Go ahead and solder this bail closed, or the ring for the bail. Okay, so I cleaned it up a little bit from the Dremel, with the Dremel, just so you can kind of see what's going on here. And I think I'm going to do it this way, probably. Mostly because this isn't perfectly done. This should come to a point there. These are a little bit closer down here. So I'm going to use that as where the bail attaches. And I made that ring a little bit ago. So let's just solder him on there. I'll add a bail to that and we'll be done. Okay, so here's the first one. I think that one came out very nice. The second one. Kind of see the optical illusion there. I just got a fingerprint on it. And the third, this one here. That one came out pretty good. I wasn't sure how this one would come out or not, but I may need to do a little more polishing in the crack there a little bit because I couldn't quite get to it, but we'll see. I think it came out pretty good. All right. Well, that was the optical illusion pendants video, so I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go. And don't forget to check out the video description for the various relevant links to my channel, including my website where you can see my jewelry that I make, my merch store where you can get some fancy stuff like my design idea book, which is really handy. And there's even links to my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee as well. So check those out, visit them, buy lots of merch, and you know, have a nice day. I appreciate you watching. Take care. Happy silversmithing.